Hi, I'm Nathan.
And I'm Katie.
And you're listening to the Content Marketing Lounge podcast. So I think I'm gonna soapbox a little today.
Oh,
I should apologize in advance.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
This is something I feel I have emotional thoughts about.
Okay.
I guess we should say before we get any further into it, we're in a room next to a kitchen. Like there's a thing of drywall between us and the kitchen, and the person who's in the next room is kind of rocking out. And I can hear a little bit of it coming through the vent.
I can too.
So I don't know what you'll be able to hear on the recording, but we work from a co-working space, and it's awesome, and no complaints. But just so you know, we're not in a professional recording studio, so if you happen to hear a little bit of that in the background, I hope you enjoy the music just like we do. So I guess just to throw out the topic for today, I've been working for myself one way or the other for the last 4.5 years. And it's been great. And on Monday, when this podcast launches, so today, in the world of you, listener, I'm starting a job, like a J-O-B job, like
Capital J
job. And this is a topic that came up earlier in the week in the group as well. And there's a lot of angst around this for people who work for themselves, because I think there's this I don't know, this ethos, this sort of cultural thing that working for a corporate is bad and working for yourself is somehow like flowers and bunnies and beautiful life.
To an extent. I would say to an extent. I mean, coming from my background, like I thought that getting a J-O-B job at a corporate situation was going to be a little bit bunnies and flowers because...
Really?
Well, I mean, and I had one before and it was definitely not bunnies or flowers, but... I appreciate the structure of it. And so for me, I had a lot of fear about freelancing because I was like, I can't make my own schedule. I can't keep track of my own money. Like all of those things.
These things are true.
Yeah.
With that said, I think that a lot of people, and I know this just from talking to people look at me and people like me and they say, oh my gosh, you don't have to put on...
Oh, I definitely...
You don't have to put on, business casual or sit in a 10 by 10 cubicle or punch a card that says you showed up at 8:02 instead of 7:59.
Or like you get to sit in the park and record the intro to your podcast while you're watching your sons play on the playground.
Right.
Like, that's pretty enviable.
I get to quote unquote work from wherever, whenever, which that's great. Don't get me wrong. That's awesome. And so what, I have to I feel like it's not that anybody is going to be challenging me specifically, but I do want to say something to people who are in this kind of world where maybe you're in a job and you kind of hate your job and you want to become a freelancer. And I was there. Like that's my 2013, 2014, 2015. And so I want to talk about that phase of my life. And maybe you're a freelancer and for whatever reason, either it's not working out as well as you had hoped, or you're burned out, or you're sort of considering that maybe I'll just go back and get a job. But then there's the fear of feeling like you failed, like you're going to be an embarrassment to all of your friends. Like you can't tell that story online in a case study. You're not going to get invited.
Right.
You're not going to get invited to speak at a conference to tell the story of how you couldn't hack it as a freelancer and had to go back and get a job. And I want to talk to those situations because I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair the way that this sort of anxiety has been built around both of those situations. So freelancing for me was a path out of corporate world, like that for sure.
Like that was kind of the whole reason you got into it was I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do this instead.
Well, it happened in two phases. Like 2013, for me, I just needed more money.
We all did.
I was coming, it was like planned. Like I was coming to the end of I graduated my master's degree in the summer of 2013, and we had a second baby on the way, and that was going to happen in August 2013, and did happen in August of 2013. But that summer, I remember in sort of May, June, I was staring down what was going to be a student loan payment of about, $300, $400 at the end of the year that I was going to have to start paying. And also, diapers are expensive. There were just going to be some additional costs to my life once the new baby came. And I knew just from working at the corporate place that I was working, and you were, I think, working there at the same time.
Yeah,
to
briefly.
2013, there wasn't going to be a $500 a month raise. Like, that just wasn't.
It wasn't going to magically cover new bill that was coming.
It wasn't going to be there.
Yeah.
And I was in a place, sort of from a career standpoint, that the job I was in at that time, in that corporate spot, like, I had some stuff I was doing that I wanted to finish, if that makes sense. Like, there was a big
in the corporate.
Yeah, like in that job. Like, I hadn't actually had that job for that long at that point. I had worked for that company for almost 3 years, and then I left, and then I came back. So I'd only been there 6 months or so at that point.
Yeah, maybe less than that.
Yeah, I think. Well, I started November 28th
of
2012.
Okay.
Is that right?
Yeah, so we would have only worked together 4 or 5 months.
4 or 5 months, and then overlap before you went off to California.
Yeah. To play sales, dress up.
That's right, because I got into it just enough to realize that you were a really good writer, and then you left, and I was like, dang it, I lost one of my competent writers.
Yeah, but one of the things that you were hired to take care of was like one of the things that they had just like put on my plate, and they're like, here, we need someone to manage this, and I was like, okay.
That would be, by the way, the email, and they never called it a blog. We called it a newsletter. In fact, I was specifically told not to build a blog. So I built a WordPress site and called it a newsletter.
Yeah, right.
Because that's how you do things.
This is our online newsletter. Yeah.
They said, we want a newsletter, but we don't want a blog. I'm like, okay. So we built a blog and called it a newsletter. It's still called a newsletter, for that matter. All these years later, many years after I've left. I was staring down a student loan payment, and so when I started freelancing, it was just a way to make that money. Like, that was just a way to cover
you were
that
just
cost.
trying to cover that extra
That's really
bill
all
or whatever.
it was. But it was a little bit like your first time you've had some really good chocolate or something.
What have I been eating all my life?
I got a taste of working independently, and it was good, and I wanted more of it. And so I didn't really take freelancing too seriously until probably the middle of 2014. So I did it for about a year. And I made $500 to $1,000 a month, something like that. I had one regular client I was working for. There was this, randomly I connected, it was Upwork, so everything is random. Actually, back then it was Elance. I did some work for a therapist. Like, I was doing ghostwriting for him, a couple of blogs, 2, 3, 4 blogs a month. And then we started doing some video work too. But and that was it. That was kind of it. And in the middle of 2014, in the middle of 2013 to 2014 was about, kind of not taking it too seriously. And then I started taking it seriously. So middle of 2014 through the middle of 2015. So that's when I really worked hard. I was working, 9 to midnight or 1 every morning, going to bed. Then I'd get up and go to work at 8 at the corporate place. That was a grind for that 12 months, but I wasn't very good at landing clients back then. I was kind of just on Elance. It was really the only place
just picking around at things.
That was really the only place I was able to sort of consistently get nibbles on my services. I wasn't charging that much. I would remember a period in that I started to do long form blog posts. I was charging $65 a piece and then $85 a piece. Like. Yeah. I remember when I first went to $100, and I remember the anxiety of charging.
No one's gonna pay me
this.
Yeah.
I remember.
3 figures.
3 figures. Yeah. And my stuff wasn't as good back then as it is today, but it was long. Like, I remember they were 1,800 word posts.
Yeah, these were not 350 word.
Yeah, I mean, that was pittance, really. But I didn't know at the time. I was just kind of on my journey, and that's kind of how it worked. So. I spent that year and I got better at it, and I learned how to get clients, and I learned how to get better clients, and I consistently and aggressively raised my prices. Every time I would get a new prospect, I would quote a price that was roughly 10 to 20% higher than whatever the highest thing I had landed
previously
to that time. And so pretty quickly I went from $100 an article to $150 to $200, in that range, and I got all the way up to $300, $350, right in that range was where I was when I quit the corporate job. I got to the point where I was making as much freelancing as I was at corporate, and that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
Where at that point it was costing me money to continue to work in corporate. So that's how I got out of corporate, and it was great. I remember the first day, like I left that job I did like part-time. I did like 3 days a week for like a month or two.
At the corporate job?
At the corporate job.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And by the way, those 2 years I was working there, especially that last year I was working there, it was pretty fun because I knew I wasn't staying. Like nobody else.
Oh yeah, all the pressure's off to like keep your job, to earn the raises, to impress everybody.
Didn't care.
Yeah.
Didn't care at all.
That's a glorious feeling.
Didn't care at all, and so nobody had anything on me at that point, and so I got away with so much crap that year. Like I did, but and I say that I wasn't nefarious about it. Like I took every training I could.
Yeah.
I took every corporate paid training that I could find. I learned how to code on the clock that year. And I used it.
But they let you, yeah.
But and also like I used it to improve their stuff a lot.
Yeah,
like,
right.
A lot of what I was learning.
You were not doing it solely for yourself.
Correct,
yeah.
correct. I mean, but I was using their time and money and resources to help them a lot. Like I was very productive for them, and I was bringing lots of new ideas into the business from my freelancing world. That's one of the great benefits, I think. If you have a side hustle plus a full-time job, you're learning stuff at night that you can come back and do during the day.
Yeah, and vice versa.
That helps you, and it goes the other way too. So there's this relationship between a side hustle and a day job, if that's what you're doing, that can be really beneficial, that can help you build skills really fast, like way faster than you could do if you just waited on your job to give you new assignments or promotions or whatever. So that was happening. But yeah, like I learned how to code like on the job, and that's been really helpful over the years. I know how to code just well enough to break my website. That's about where I'm at. I can sometimes fix it and sometimes not. It depends on how much stuff I can find on Google for that particular day.
Yeah.
But it was great. I mean, for me, it was freedom. And so I quit the job kind of in 2 phases. Like I went from full-time to 3 days a week, and then from there I quit. It took about 2 months to make that transition.
And why were you still working those few days a week? Was that your choice? Was that their ask? Like, how did that happen?
Money. It was just.
So you wanted to keep that money coming in.
It was just a math decision at that point.
I mean, I didn't realize that had been an option for you, but I'm guessing just based on what I know that you were doing, they probably were willing to keep you at 3 days a week or 2 days a week or whatever, just to keep you as long as they could.
They didn't have anybody to help me. Yeah,
exactly.
It was a nice out too, because I gave all of my information and process stuff to other people. They knew what was up. I mean, they could see where it was headed.
Yeah,
like it was. Everyone involved went through that process with eyes wide open, and so I tried to make it so that they had all the information that they needed when I was gone. So that was good for them, and it was good for me. I mean, it wasn't good for them that I left, but
it's better than you leaving cold with 2 weeks notice.
Yeah, it wasn't like I went in. I didn't get on the PA and that's the story of the JetBlue flight attendant who like got on the PA, popped the emergency flight, and took 2 beers and slid down. And like that wasn't the way.
That's not how that went.
No,
that doesn't seem like your style, Nathan.
It really doesn't seem like my style. I mean, I think all of us have a little bit of that in us, but that wasn't how I wanted to do things. So that's how I quit. And so I went from that into full-time freelance. And so the next Monday, it wasn't freedom at all. It was like, well, crap, it's 10 in the morning. I got work to do.
Yeah, right.
And so a couple of things they don't tell you when you start freelancing is it's really hard to do your work sometimes because you feel like, oh, I'm a freelancer. I have freedom.
Yeah, right.
And so that means you can do anything, which means you will procrastinate hard
so much
some days because the internet is never-ending source of
Netflix
of all kinds of things. Like, and I had started my Facebook group right in that phase. Like I started the Facebook group before I was quitting, but long after I knew I was quitting. So I was working hard on building that from the first. That was right in that phase where I had just gotten a couple hundred members, and it was good. Like
in the content marketing
lounge, yeah. And people were discussing back and forth. Some people who are still active today came in that first 100 or 200
OG members.
And so I was working that, and I was working like my stuff, and I was probably cranking out an article or 2 a day at that point. Just because I wasn't charging enough, I had to do that. That was the volume I had to be at. So for me, the number was always something like $5,000 a month was sort of my minimum number. Like I had to hit that to be able to give like my wife enough money so she could go to the grocery store
Yeah, right.
and those kinds of things, because she doesn't work, and that's our choice. We wanted her to be able to stay mostly stay home with the kids, but just to be able to do everything we needed to do. That's where I needed to be, and that was hard. I had to really, really hustle to hit that number every month. So they say freelance to freedom. It's just freelance to hustle. Really, that's what it was for me.
Yeah, right. You have the freedom to screw up your own decisions.
And no one to blame.
Yeah,
and
no one to blame but yourself.
Yeah. It also felt like, I remember during that time, it was like, wow, I just traded one boss for 7. It was like, now I have 7 people who are always on me for this or that or the other. And that's not good or bad. That's just the way life is when you're a freelancer. You're not really running a business the way that, it's not like you're scaling up a product business or something like that. You're doing creative service work for individuals, and it feels a lot like having a boss times however many clients you have.
However, note that when you have 7 bosses, if there's one of them you don't like, you can fire that boss.
That's the beauty. We're
back to the benefits.
Yeah, we're back to the benefits. So I mean, it's just a different world, and so there are trade-offs, and there are very good things too. And I have referred away a lot of clients over the years. Both because they weren't good clients and because some of them were good clients, and I was just charging more than they were paying at the time. So financially, it was worth it for me to move on to other and better things. Something's still happening. So that happened, and I've taken kind of a windy journey from then until now. I've done lots of different kinds of contract work. For a while, I worked for the United Way of Greene County, which is my local Greene County, for 3-4 months, and that was a part-time job. I was the interim director of the United Way of Greene County. So that looks really nice on the resume, actually.
Director anything looks good.
And I actually worked full-time there for a few weeks, about a month, thinking, and we thought that maybe that would transition into a true full-time job.
Yeah.
But for lots of reasons, again, not anything bad on either side. It just didn't quite work out for everyone involved. Mostly because they're a nonprofit and I needed more money.
Right. That'll do it.
So that was a really good experience too, just because I was able to kind of do some stuff that it was kind of cool in the community to get connected in that way. And I could. I had the freedom to do that because I was freelancing. So I did that. Last year, I spent most of last year working with Benji and Davis at Grow and Convert. I was the editorial director, the editor. Managing editor. That's what we called it. So all content for all clients, which was between 4 and 8 clients at any given time, which is, 30 long, heavy, deep,
big posts, 1,500
very
words
well,
to 3,000 words,
very
regularly.
well researched stuff. So that was just a tremendous experience, tremendous opportunity. For 3 months at the end of last year, they had me as general manager, which meant I was all operations across all clients. And at the end of that, I was pretty burned out.
Yeah.
I was pretty well burned out. So
it was a lot of scaling up very quickly for you.
It was. And I remember feeling, this is, half a year ago now. I think with time, I can say that I think my big problem was that I wanted to go deeper with each individual client than I had time to do. And that was what I wanted and didn't really realize that. So I ended up just not having enough time to deliver the quality that I wanted. And that is not a function of anybody but me. To be successful.
Yeah, that was just your prerogative.
Yeah, it just you can't do that if you're the general manager. You have to let other people do that.
Yeah, right.
And so that was hard on my psyche, and just kind of is this the kind of is this what I had to get up and manage people all day long.
Yeah. Which
I can do, but that's not really what I wanted to do. And I don't know that I knew that until I did that job for a while.
Yeah.
So that was a learning experience. It takes a lot out of me to be in meetings all day. We talked on our last episode about, I don't know if we've aired that one yet. At some point we talked about, we went on a sales call and we did really well, and then we were both had to take a nap afterwards.
Yeah, that story is forthcoming.
That story I think is probably on the next episode. But and so since then I freelanced and pulled you in, and we've kind of been freelancing in a team kind of a team model. So
Right, yeah.
you could call it an agency if you want. I'm not sure if
I call it an agency. I tell everyone
it
I'm
is
working
now.
for an agency.
It is definitely
so,
now.
Yeah, just so you're aware.
If it wasn't before, it is now.
Yeah. It's not just two people cranking stuff out.
Correct.
And it's
Correct.
not just us. There's other people too.
It's at least 4 at this point. So 2 of us plus 2 more. And so I did a lot of the writing, and then over the last, I don't know, few months, I just have come to the point where I'm not really learning anything new anymore. Every piece is kind of feels the same. I'm still really good at it. I'm still really able to generate really high quality content. My clients are happy with what I create. I'm personally not really happy with the amount of time it takes me to get to it.
Yeah.
So there's some things about the way that I'm working right now that have just been frustrating to me. And I guess I got enough of a taste with Grow and Convert of the strategy side of things that I've always been a content creator, and I'm just ready to jump into more strategy stuff. That's kind of where I want to go. I feel like that's where I wanted to go, and I wanted to go deep.
Yeah, I was going to say, is watching you, I feel like that's the biggest thing that I want to learn from you, because I feel like that's one of your biggest strengths.
Yeah.
And so you've taught me so much about how to write an article, how to do it quickly, how to edit others, how to edit myself, things like that. But when I look at the people that I freelance for outside of this as a writer, which I do on occasion, strategy is the piece I don't have. And I'm like, oh, no, Nathan's got that piece. And to me, that's where a big wealth of your, what the value that you bring to a project is, that's kind of in your wheelhouse.
I have tons of knowledge there, but right now, the way that things are going, I'm just not getting to use a whole lot of it. So,
yeah.
So I don't know, 3 months ago, I could just tell I was kind of looking for something new, and I started sort of peeking around, and I wasn't thinking full-time job.
Yeah, right.
At all. But
there's plenty of part-time opportunities out there too, and
yeah,
things like that too.
I was actually thinking what's a good contract model for a strategy offer look like? I was thinking about expanding the agency in that direction.
Yeah. You mean in the strategy direction?
In strategy, yeah, beginning to offer more consulting, because I've done that in the past on a sort of one-off basis. Normally, what happens is I get hired as a writer, and then people find out I have all of this knowledge about everything else, and then they want to know. First, they want to know all of that information for free, because that's how it goes, and I don't blame them for that. But there would have been, and probably still will be at some point, an offer, an opportunity for me to do consulting and those kinds of things. But even that, the more I thought about it, the more I thought, I don't know if I want to do deep strategy with 10 clients. It just felt it felt overwhelming again. And so I was poking around, and there's a couple of job boards that I keep an eye on, because they occasionally have freelance kind of opportunities that pop up there. And I haven't put in for one in years, but I was poking around one night and happened to check. It's We Work Remotely, so that's the site where I was on. And there was a listing on there for a company called GrooveHQ.com, which is a company I'm very familiar with. They're owned by Alex Turnbull, who just put Groove on the map in 2013 through content marketing. They're very well known for documenting the startup process, and I remember reading their articles in the Cube at my corporate job when I was in the process of sort of leaving. So, and they were looking for a content marketer, and I was like, well, that's interesting. It was the first time that something sparked in me in a while. I felt that little spark of,
that's intriguing.
That's interesting. There's a really, because most of the places that I would go these days, they wouldn't have somebody on staff who has the experience in content marketing that I do. I would be coming in with my knowledge to help them do it.
Right.
I would be the expert.
And I mean, that's essentially where you started in 2013 when you returned to the company we were working at together, and even then you were still relatively new at it.
Yeah.
And
that's a great point.
6.5 years ago?
Yeah, so 6.5 years ago, I was by far and away the best content marketer in that company.
Yeah, 5.5 years ago.
And that's because I was the only one in the company who was truly doing content marketing. Everybody else was kind of doing bits and pieces of other things.
Yeah.
So that sounds...
Most of the people there were just doing project management of marketing collateral.
Yeah. And that's
all any of us really, a lot of us knew how to do.
Yeah. So. And I was out there doing email lists and blog posts and trying to figure out how to double traffic in a year and those kinds of things, which really wasn't that hard when you started with not that great stuff to begin with. So I was able to
Yeah,
say,
I was glad to scrape that off my plate onto yours.
I was able to
'Cause
say,
I didn't know what I was doing.
I was able to say after a year that I doubled traffic to the site, at least to the blog, and I knew sort of in the back of my head that it was all tricks and changes to headlines and things, but yeah, and so here I am 6 years later. But this one, I looked at that, and what it sparked in me was, oh my goodness, here's an opportunity for me to actually like go someplace where there are people who do this at a really high level. And it's the same spark that I felt when I first started working with Benji and Davish at Grow and Convert, because those guys are so good at content marketing that I could learn a lot. I knew that there was a lot there, that they were operating at a level that was above where the vast majority of content marketing people operate at, just because they were way more experienced at it. Benji was very experienced, having run content marketing for a startup, and Davish was an expert in conversion, that kind of stuff, and that was just stuff that I wanted to know. So working with them, I got to learn all that. And so here's an opportunity again that I felt like, wow, that's a place that I would like to be. Like, and I don't know what that means. Like, I wasn't intentionally going out to find full-time work, but
yeah,
I was like,
here it was.
I'm going to put in for this and we'll see where it goes. So I filled out that little application. I think I can't remember if it was them. I pulled out my resume, which I hadn't updated in like 3 years. and I think I had to send that in. It might have been that one or a different one. I can't remember. Right around that time I had to dust it off for something else. But I thought if I'm going to be open to doing full-time work somewhere, I might as well update my resume.
Right.
Which was woefully out of date.
Useful thing to
Woefully
have on hand.
out of date.
Yeah.
Sent that off, sent a couple of samples off. I don't know, the following week, Alex wrote me a note and he said, so I wrote him a sample article and we talked, and then like he made me an offer, and the offer was really good.
Yeah.
So I said yes almost right away. And when he made the offer, like I had that spark again, like not just yes, but like heck yeah.
Yeah.
Like, this is something I want. I think every opportunity I've had for the last maybe year or two, ever since the stuff with Grow and Convert really has been like, yeah, we can do that. Like I can do that. I can help you do that.
Which is a great feeling to have. Like, and I mean, I am still at such an early point in my career. I'm 34 years old, and I feel like I've recently started over, like, not once, but twice, like, just kind of keep changing gears a little bit. And I have, I went to grad school for 3 years in a creative situation. I am a walking example of imposter syndrome, and, like, I still have it on a regular basis. So, like, to hear you say that you can get to the point where you're like, oh yeah, I can totally do that job, because every single thing that I like apply for, every prospect I talk to, I'm like, oh my God, can I do this thing they're asking me to do? Yeah. I think I can. And yeah, I can. Like, I remember, factually, I'll be fine, but I still overthink it all.
For a long time when I was doing client work, every time a client like said yes or said let's do whatever, whatever. Yeah. Whenever they said, hey, we'd like to do some work with you.
Yeah.
That felt, I got that spark, like, new project, new, and I just I'm to the point, I'd gotten to the point recently where, like, I'm not quite getting that same feeling anymore. And so I think, and so here I am, I'm this person, who leads this group of people who many of them aspire to be a full-time freelancer. And here I am saying, like, yeah, I kind of been there, done that, I'm moving on. Like, and I don't want anyone listening to this to hear, like, I don't want to discourage you, because for me, the next right step in 2013 was absolutely to do
getting into freelancing,
right? And the next right step for me in 2014 was to, like, work my butt off to become a full-time freelancer. And it was hard work, and it was worth it.
Yeah.
And the experience of becoming a full-time freelancer who works for myself, here's the key thing, is that skill development happens so much faster when you think about your career as a whole, rather than just, like, if you just make your goal like, I want to work for myself, then you're kind of wrapped up in that little bubble and you don't see the other possibilities that might be the long-term sort of trajectory that you might take.
Right.
Because what's the next right thing for you now, it may change over time. So the next right thing for me right now is a full-time job. It doesn't mean I'm still able to do side projects. I can still
Right.
be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and that was the next thing I was going to say is that the way you're positioning it is almost like, I'm giving up freelancing. Like, no, you're
I'm not.
absolutely not
Yeah.
giving up freelancing. You are just going back to doing more than one thing at a time. And that's a strategic and creative decision for you on a lot of levels. So.
Yeah, I'm blocking off 40 hours a week to work for Groove.
For
and
Groove.
Then I get to do the other time, like other things I work on are kind of like a hobby.
Yeah.
I get to spend some time, like you're going to pick up a lot of the client stuff,
Right,
like
yeah.
you and a couple of our other writers. So I'm sure I'll have questions that you guys will come to me and
Which-
ask questions.
Yeah, which is great because, like, again, like we were joking with Jara the other day that, like, I have terrible imposter syndrome, that you were like, here, do this job that I've basically been doing. And I'm like, I don't know if I can do that. Like, Nathan says he wants me to do this, but I think he's crazy. And, like, if I stand, like, I know I'll be fine. Like, the rational side of me knows that this is going to be fine, and we already have a great working system, and all I have to do is take over the moving parts
Yeah,
of
but
it.
tell that to your lizard brain, right?
Exactly. My lizard brain does not agree. But I do think it's really interesting that you, a big part of it for you is that spark of getting that, like, oh yeah, I know how to do that, or I can do that thing. And, like, I still struggle with that in my own freelancing, but, like, we have had a couple of prospects, I say, drop into our lap. They have not dropped into our lap. For the most part, we have gone out and found them.
Yes.
But that they'll come to us and they're like, hey, here's this very specific thing that we need someone to do for us. And we're like, oh my God, that's the thing we do. And it just works out really well.
Yeah, that's not a
so,
coincidence.
and I exactly, it's not a coincidence, but, like, I get that, like, excited, like, that's what we do. We can do that for you. Yeah. And so there's it's a sparky thing for me.
Yeah,
so.
That is pretty cool. I'll give you.
Yeah.
That's a function of the fact of how we position and how we do our outreach. That's always going to be the reaction. Is people will either ignore
effective prospecting.
They'll either ignore us.
Yeah.
But the ones who come back are going to be like, how did you know?
Yeah, right, exactly. Like, it does always feel like that. It's like, you guys read our minds. It's like, no, we were trying to read 17 people's minds. We were just doing cold reading, and you were the person whose dead relative starts with Nem or whatever.
Well, it's because they had, and to be really specific about it, it's because the type of things we send them and the types of articles that we publish on the agency site, they define a problem that they didn't have defined before. And so
that's very
if there's
true.
somebody who's sitting out there and they're like, man, I need more case studies. I don't know how to get case studies. Every customer I ask to do a case study is just a tremendous pain.
Yeah.
And then an email from us lands in their inbox that talks about this new process that they can use. That's way easier to get case studies. Mm-hmm. Like, it feels to them like we read their mind.
Right, yeah, it does.
But we were just fishing.
Yeah.
So,
and the worm on the hook was just in their little area of the pond.
It was in the right spot at the right time. So that's how prospecting works, and we're pretty good at understanding from research, what companies are, likely to be. From our side, it looks like, less than a 10% response rate. Mm-hmm. But whatever, we don't need a huge response rate, just a few will keep us going. So now keep you going.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So I was able to take my experience over the last 4 years, and I haven't said this, but the Groove job is a remote job. Like, it's the job I always wanted.
Yeah, right.
Before I started freelancing, I kind of knew that there was this world of people who, like, do remote work from wherever and kind of work over the internet, and like, like that's their employer does that. Like, they're okay with that. I never knew how to get a job like that.
And that's the thing. I feel like a lot of people want those jobs and just have no idea how to go about. I mean, I have no idea how to go about getting those. I could ask you, but I'm learning, obviously. But yeah, it's a huge question mark for a lot of people, and it sounds like the dream, but it also feels very thin and airy up in this, like, hazy space above our heads that we don't know how to access.
But we freelancers, or we who have worked with clients long distance, we gain experience doing that, and that looks stellar to people who are actually doing remote work. And I'll tell you one other story. I actually put in for a job while one of the things I considered doing was, like, just being open to new job opportunities back in 2013, like in that range, before I really decided to go hard after the freelancing thing. So it was probably early 2014. That's when I first became aware of we work remotely. I read Remote, which is written by the guys who do Basecamp. I'm blanking on their names, but and they are the ones who organize the site. We work remotely. It's like it's their site. And so I went there and I flipped through things, and Kissmetrics at the time was hiring for a copywriter. And so I put in for a remote copywriting job, having never worked a job before. And I got all the way down to the final like cut.
Wow.
Like I got down to like the final 3 or 4 people. I had interviews. I had an interview with like the guy who was running Kissmetrics content marketing over like the first web conference call I'd ever done ever.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't tell him that.
Right.
But and then I had a second interview like with the whole team remotely, which was an experience. And I didn't make it past. Ultimately, they found out that I'm not a very good copywriter. I'm a content writer, but not a very good copywriter. And
distinct difference.
I'm a lot better at it now than even back then. I really wasn't a good copywriter. But I remember thinking, well, dang, how do you get a job like that? And so this time around, like 6 years later, 5 years later, putting in for a similar job with Groove, like I was a leading candidate right from the start because of everything I'd done since then. So.
And for those of you who are just starting out as freelancers or considering starting it, like 6 years sounds like a really long time.
Oh my gosh.
But I'm at the beginning of my career, but like, I did the same thing with grad school. I quit working and went back to grad school full time, and those 3 years disappeared on me. And so it's like, if you start investing now, it will eventually pay off.
Yeah.
It might take some time, but it'll be worth it.
Yeah, I heard somebody a long time ago, and it's stuck with me for a long time. It might have been about 5 years ago now. He said, I can't remember if it was a podcast. I don't even remember who it was. It was something I was listening to somewhere. And he said, I dare you to work every day on something for 5 years.
Yeah.
Like, I dare you to do it. Work an hour or two every day on something for 5 years. And I dare you not to find some sort of success with it. You may not end up where you think you're going to end up, but you'll end up somewhere pretty cool if you do that. And
it's a very Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours rule from
and
Outliers.
I think having traveled about 5 years on this path, like, that was right.
Yeah.
Like, that was true. I didn't mean to do it that way, but yeah, I work every day on it. Like, every day. Like, no exceptions.
Yeah,
I'm always on it somewhere. I don't intentionally try and overwork myself, but, even on Sundays or whatever, I'm reading stuff, or I'm thinking about, what's the next thing I want to learn or try. So I think that's the key thing I wanted to say, is that, hey, I'm getting a job. But there's still going to be a Call Your Marketing. Call Your Marketing is still for hire, even though I'm going to, pull myself out of a lot of the operations. It'll still be heavily. We've spent this last 5 months sort of building up.
Yeah, right.
Like, the way that things are done and the way we do things, and
having a system in place,
our unique value proposition. So it'll be kind of your baby to see how big you can make that.
I know. I saw a thing the other. I guess it's been a while ago now, but like I'm pretty open about the fact that like I don't think I want to have kids. But there's this meme about something like, we shouldn't let people have children until they can finish a tube of chapstick. Because so many of us lose a tube of chapstick before we ever get anywhere near the end. And I just, like, literally 2 days ago, like, tried to screw up my chapstick. I was like, I'm at the bottom. I think I'm ready to parent something
this
now.
Like
so
like
Call Your Marketing is going to be my baby, I guess.
This should be a badge for that.
I got to the end of a tube of chapstick.
I guess the other thing to say is that, like Jeff, his third thing was he wants to work on some creative projects. I'm the same way. For me, it's the Content Marketing Lounge. Like that, you can kind of feel the momentum in the group picking up over the last few months. Especially in the last month, I've personally like put a little bit more effort into cultivating that group, and I can feel you can feel the momentum picking up a little bit.
There's some good group discussions going on. It's a really active place. People clearly feel comfortable sharing and asking what could be potentially embarrassing questions. I mean, it's really hard to get into a group of 4,200 people who you think probably all know what they're doing, and you're like, look, I don't know what I'm doing. How do I do this?
Yeah.
And I have learned more from questions like that. So, it's great that we have that environment.
Yeah, and I think that's rare. I've been poking around Reddit the last 2 months on the weekends, like
Yeah.
just like a hobby,
Right, yeah.
just like a hobby. Somehow I got curious. I'm like, how do you even use Reddit as a person who does things, like just
What's
as
it
a
for
user,
if you're not going to use it for purely entertainment or Googling purposes?
It's for power washing porn. Apparently, that's what it's for.
That's the funniest thing to me ever.
I'm telling you, like that particular subreddit, the power washing.
You're just watching people like clean their patios.
It's like it's hypnotic. I can't. I don't own a power
it's like
washer.
ASMR videos.
I don't own a power washer, but I'm gonna get one. I think. Look, honey, I just did the sidewalk. It's so satisfying. But interestingly enough, though, like the admins of that group do a really, really excellent job cultivating that group. There's like on Wednesday, you can post these types of videos. If you post a video any other day of the week, it has to meet these criteria, and then they get like taken down if not. And I mean, it's not a marketing group, so they don't have spammers the way that marketing groups do. But man, the content marketing, the R content_marketing subreddit is just bad. Like it's
there's
one of those,
nothing there basically, right?
It's one of those
people
spam
usually
cities.
post to say like they're leaving because nothing's happening.
Yeah. There was a post yesterday that said, "Why does this group suck?"
That was a whole post.
And so then there was, of course, a lot of conversation about that. But I don't know. Maybe we'll do a little bit of some work to try and establish a foothold into that world. So I don't know. We'll see where that goes. I definitely will be working on some sort of training or program or event or conference or something. That's what did you call it? A bee in my bonnet?
Yeah, we got to get that bee out of your bonnet.
Yeah, so that look for that.
Got in there. We need to exercise.
I'm pretty sure that the post and the podcast for next week, next Monday, will be about that. So yeah, and we're building stuff too. We're building this podcast. We're building the blog. I put all the old courses out for free. We've got 34 people who've opted into the email list since I put that out.
Just a couple of days.
So that's a really good start. I mean, can you be excited about 34 email subscribers? I am.
Yeah, oh, totally.
So
I don't have any. It's not like I have my own list. Like 34 is more than I've ever had. So
I love what this community has become, and I'm looking forward to spending some time and some energy and some effort, building out some stuff that will continue to sort of get that dynamic of people helping other people going in the group. So I think that's all I have to say. Is there anything you didn't ask me or anything I haven't said?
No, I have one more thing to share though, if anybody's interested. My favorite Twitter account, and by favorite I mean literally only account that I actually get push notifications to my phone for, is So Sad Today, which is dark and funny and a little nihilistic and incredibly neurotic. But Melissa Broder, who is the poet and author behind it, actually does an advice column on Vice.com. And the episode that just came out the episode, wow, you can tell I'm in podcasting room.
Article.
The update that came out yesterday is doing what you love is hard. Advice from So Sad Today. And then the subhead is, it may seem that others are achieving, quote, liberation, unquote, through following their passions, but what you might not see is the hard work behind it.
Yeah, that's so true.
So, yeah, and basically, Melissa had somebody write in asking, like, how do you switch from doing a day job to pursuing your dream? And she has some really great notes on working through fear, learning to do multiple things at the same time, remembering that you're judging your insides by other people's outsides, which we need to not do, and just kind of learning to like let go of the expectations, start small, do what you want to do. You don't have to tell anybody that you're doing it.
I love that.
I do too.
Don't tell people what you're going to do. Just do it and then tell them what you did.
Yeah, I've gotten really, really good at that myself because it terrifies me. Like if I tell everybody like I want to do this amazing thing and then I don't do it, then I just look like an idiot or a failure or whatever else. And it's like if you don't tell anybody and you just do this amazing thing, then you can be like, hey, look at this thing I did.
Yeah. The only exception to that is when you need the people to come on board and do the thing with you, then you have to tell them like some of the stuff we're working on people need to know
exactly.
about.
But like I was not writing home to my mom and dad like, hey, I'm gonna start a podcast with this guy or no, that's not what happened. It was like here's a link if you want to hear my voice on the internet.
That's awesome. I love it.
So
we'll link to that in the description. And I think for how that translates into so much of what happens in our world is I I know I used to feel this. I looked at the people. I was sitting in my corporate cubicle going, oh, those freelancers, man, they got it made. And I was comparing myself to them. And then when I became a freelancer, I looked at the elite freelancers, and I thought, oh man, look at those guys, they got it made. And now I know that I'm sitting on the other side of that, where there's other people looking at me going, look at Nathan, he's got it made. How did he do that? And hopefully I have enough information out there that you can go take the client acquisition 101 course. It's free. And it'll show you everything I did to kind of get to where I'm at. But also here's the thing I really want to say, don't let anybody shame you. Don't let anybody shame you for where you're at. If you are in a corporate job, there's nothing wrong with having a corporate job. If you just want to work a 9 to 5, don't let anybody tell you that that's bad. If you're working, if you've been doing the entrepreneur thing and you're burned out on it and you want to go back to work somewhere, and that's what you feel like is the next right step for you, don't be embarrassed by that. Own it. You don't have to put it out on social media. Just do it and say, hey, I got this great opportunity and I'm going to take it.
Right.
So, and it's real bad with the guru crowd too, those guys who are walking around their mansion, check out all this amazing life that I have because I'm so smart. So I got no beef with those guys. You don't get a mansion unless you know what you're doing, but it can feel that some of those things can make those of us who are at a different place, it can make you feel bad. It can make you feel like you're not good enough or whatever, and that you are good enough right where you're at. What you're doing today is fine. It may not be what you're going to do in the future, and those people's next step, buying a private jet, I'm just not worried about those people.
Yeah, right.
And you shouldn't be either. So I don't know.
Not the yardstick by which we are measuring
Correct.
ourselves.
Correct. Hopefully that speaks to at least somebody out there. If there's at least one person that maybe can notch down the anxiety in your life a little bit from our stories, that will have been worth it. So I didn't soapbox too much. A little less than I thought I did.
Yeah. I'm here to keep you in check. So.
Yeah, well, you better, because my family's out of town. So
what you guys can't see is I have this huge buzzer button, and I just push it, and then he gets a little zap, and it stops him from talking. So
it's that would be scary if that were real.
I'm not that sadistic.
One of those things you put on a dog when you train him. Oh my goodness. All right, we'll do this again next week, I think.
All right. Thanks for listening.